Hey there. I hope you're doing well. I am Hiramoni and welcome to Get Set Global. In today's show, I have got a panel of guests who are from different parts of India and now they live in the UK. They're not from Assam, but I have got guests who lived in Assam for a short while. I have got guests who visited Assam as a tourist, and I also have got guests who have not been to Assam yet, but all of them have an image of Assam based on either their first-hand experience or through media, through their own research, or probably through interactions with people from the region. And during the show, I will try and find out their views on Assam and people of Assam. And there is a purpose to it. Let's face it, Assam and northeast of India are not known to people outside the region the same way, probably as they do know about some of the other parts of India. And there may be many reasons. Maybe because of its geographic location, maybe because Assam or Northeast were not considered as one of the popular commercial hub, which is why companies would not consider spreading their businesses to the region. Maybe because of media coverage on insurgency. Sometimes the culture of the region is seen with a different view, and other times is sheer ignorance. It's up for debate whether we invest our time in dwelling on much on the reasons, or is it more useful to spend and invest time in finding out what needs doing? I see today's show as a useful exercise, as a feedback exercise, where we find out what the rest of India thinks of Assam. Do they think that there are gaps? If yes, what we need to do to minimize those gaps? What stories, what narratives need to be told? Interesting discussions, new learnings, a bit of laughter. I'm looking forward to all of it during the show. So come and join me. Let's begin by starting by introducing my panel of guests. And my first guest today is Burzine Waghmar. Hi, Burzine. So lovely to see you. And yeah, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you for joining in. I'll give a very quick introduction of Burzine, and then I'll bring other guests as well. So Burzine is from Mumbai in India, but he lives here in the UK. He's librarian for South Asia and Indo Iranian studies, I think, languages for the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. You hold academic affiliations for the center. With the center, these are difficult, words, but I'm trying. So just if I go wrong, tell me. Also, your specialization is in I think ancient Iranian and Central Asian history and languages. Yeah, okay, brilliant. So we have got a lot to talk about, but let me just bring my other guest as well. My next guest is Meera. Okay, I hope I get her. Okay, I think I can't get her connection. I'll get my next guest, who is Rakesh Gotiwale. Hello, Rakesh.
Hello,
Lovely
dear.
to see.
Same here. Always good.
And Rakesh is from Bhopal in India, and he lives here in the UK. He is an IT professional, and he's somebody who likes to know about different cultures, people, regions, states, not only for Assam, but not only for India, but outside India as well. And Rakesh has visited Assam as well. I think some parts of Northeast Meghalaya, if I'm not wrong, for trekking.
Correct.
So we'll have a lot to talk about that. My next guest, let's see if I have got Meera. I think we do. Hi, Meera. Can you hear us?
Yes, thank you for having me on the show.
Okay, now we can hear you. All right. So Meera Vinay, she is from Karnataka, in India. Okay, something is not quite right, Meera, with the Wi-Fi. I know that she's holidaying in Devon, so Wi-Fi sounds like a bit of an issue. But a quick intro. Okay, Meera, do you want to log out and log back again? Because I don't think we can hear you.
Sure. Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, I had to do that. I will bring another guest, and I think Kirti Soni is here, so I will try and bring her. Hello, Kirti.
Hello.
Hi there. Lovely to see you
Hi.
here, and thank you for joining in. So Kirti is from Gujarat, and now she lives in England. She's a certified psychotherapist, and she works from professionals to people of different background, age, nationalities, and so on. And also, you are the founder of is it called Jivan,
Jivan.
organ blood donation, as well as also COVID-19 mental health support. So thank you to all of you for joining today. I would start with Burzine. Burzine, your area of interest and your area of work tells me that you have a huge amount of information about Assam, and also the history and so on. So I'm not going to really ask you what do you know about Assam, um, but although you have not been to Assam, but you have an image of Assam, and I am guessing, and I think I'm right in saying this, that your perception, your image of Assam is based on facts, on history. Uh, so I would really like you to tell people who probably don't know about Assam, how would you explain Assam in the most simplistic form so that everyone can get to know very quickly?
Well, if you really want it simple, Hira, oil. The first oil in India was discovered in Assam, Digboy, if you remember the refinery back in the 1880s, as it were. One thinks of Assam with the Kaziranga sanctuary and rhinoceros, and to
Yes.
say nothing of the nation's favorite beverage, tea, and which, of course, the British cultivated and actively did so in the Brahmaputra Valley and Darjeeling, and put Darjeeling on the world map through tea. So, I mean, that is what the very word Assam in the first instance would conjure to any non Assamese, particularly the last bit, Darjeeling as in tea. But of course, for an Indian audience or a Sentinel audience who's familiar with what I'm saying, one doesn't think of ONGC, which is off the coast of Bombay, where I grew up, for oil, but it's actually Digboy back in the 1880s, where the first Assam Oil Company and later Burma Oil set up, and oil was actually discovered onshore in India, not offshore. So that is to, well, Assam's credit, as it were. And of course, I think what we are trying to attempt, at least I hope so, in this program is not to think of Assam and by extension the Northeast as, an afterthought, that it just takes a second or two to pause and think, oh, yeah, that is, oh, it's part of India, isn't it, sort of thing. No, it is very much India. I mean, despite geography and the distance involved, it's not entirely on a different planet, for one thing. It's very much within the country. And Assam has very much been part of the Indian fabric through history, from the ancient period right down to the modern period. I mean, just to throw a fact here, if you would indulge me pedantically for a moment, Assam, as we know it in Sanskrit, Kamarup, is mentioned in the middle of Allahabad, the city of Allahabad. And what am I referring to here? Samudragupta's 4th century inscription, the Allahabad pillar inscription. So, I mean, this is Allahabad, which is slap bang in the middle of UP, which is considered the heartland of India. So what's alien or distant about the mention of Kamarup as an Assam? Now, of course, you have Indian Railways running trains called Kamarup Express, which harkens back to the ancient period and conjures the old name of what was the region around the Brahmaputra Valley. But, I mean, this is to mention, as I said, about the Gupta period, which is the classical age of India, where Assam is attested epigraphically on the Alabad inscription. And even to very quickly to come down to the modern period, just for the British, the Ahom dynasty, a 600-year-old dynasty of Assam, and its interactions with the Mughals. And the Mughals very much knew Assam, and Assam has mentioned Persian records because Persian was the lingua franca of the Mughal court, as you know. Not Urdu, Persian. And in all Persian chancery records, we have Assam regularly and routinely mentioned. And then, of course, we come to the British period, and that becomes familiar to one and all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so wonderful. I mean, Burzine, I knew that you'll be the right person to ask this question because someone who is not from the place, when they say about the place, it has got an objective approach. It is neutral to someone who is a native. Plus, I think everything you have said, it's not your view about Assam, but it's what history says, what the facts are. So yeah, thank you so much for that. I'll come to Kirti now. Kirti, obviously, you're from Gujarat, like I said in the introduction. And Gujarat and Assam, geographically, they're not so close to each other. So for an average Gujarati who lives in Gujarat and haven't actually really gone much out of Gujarat, for that person, probably, they probably don't get enough opportunities to meet and interact with people from Assam or Northeast. However, the time is changing now. We are in a digital world, so they can get any information they want. We have got the media, there are images to see. So all that is there. Keeping all that in mind, what do you think? What would be the perception of an average Gujarati person living in Gujarat about Assam? And I know when I'm asking you this question, it is hard because I'm telling you to answer on behalf of somebody hypothetical, but I still want to know your views. What do you think?
Okay. So my views, originally when you asked me this, were like, oh gosh, what would people in Gujarat be thinking about people from Assam? And I've traveled to Gujarat so many times. We've got family there, so I've been there so many times. And obviously, I'm very much a part of the Gujarati community here in London. And you really got me thinking with that question because apart from, of course, my favorite tipple, I was like, the only thing I know about Assam is about the tea. I don't know enough about the place, and I should know more because it is very much a part of India. But that having been said, I was actually, busy growing up and raising children and having a family, and I hadn't actually even researched anything on Gujarat, let alone on anywhere else. So, as part of this, actually, I thought, let me just ask a few of my connections in Gujarat. Hey, guys, what are your thoughts or opinions on Assam? And they're like, okay, nice people. We perceive them as very friendly people. We perceive them as being peaceful people. Now, that was very important because, as we know, so many areas in India are known not to be peaceful. So the perception, and this is live from the mouths of people in Gujarat over the past couple of days, just mini poll conducted by myself, and they have all positive opinions and positive perceptions, and of course they are all very grateful to the people of Assam for their daily cuppa because no Gujarati starts the day without their brewed chai. It has to be like brewed for 10 or 15 minutes with all the ginger or the spices or whatever they put in there. So their perception is we're very grateful to them for providing us our daily tipple.
Okay, all right.
So we're all positive.
Okay, so no, fantastic. So I think what I gather from what you have said, obviously, is Assam tea is Assam known for, and even when you live in the UK, if you don't know anything else, but you do know Assam tea because you get
Yes.
to see them.
Yeah.
But from people of Gujarat have said that people of Assam are nice in the sense, friendly. You said they're peaceful. Peaceful is important to me also
Yes.
because media has always covered Northeast as a place because of its insurgency, the terrorism problem.
Yeah.
And if people's perception is that it's peaceful, I think
Yes.
it's a great thing. But thank you for all those input. Coming to Rakesh. Uh, Rakesh, you have been to Assam
Yes,
and you have been to Meghalaya as well, I think, for
correct.
trekking.
Exactly.
So I'm, of course, very keen to know your experience of visiting Assam and how it was like. And, when people go to a place, they have got certain expectations. They are pleasantly surprised, or they have got a bit of a disappointment if the expectation doesn't meet reality. So I want to know what holds true for you. And when you got back from Assam, what memories did you bring back? I mean, even when you look back today and
Yes.
think of Assam, what is that one thing that comes clearly to your mind?
Well, I would say I would start from my comment and picking up from what Kirti said. For me, people is more important. Forget about anything, any place, any tourist place, whatever history is. For me, nothing matters unless and until people makes it better. So that is where I start from, and that is where I end as well. Because when I visited, there was I won't say perception, but there was a information which we had. And I'm talking about not 5 years, not 10 years. I'm talking about this is nearly 20 years back.
Yes.
And the time when the wrong things were in sort of a peak or sort of a heading towards the end. And we had this warnings for us as a group that you might face some sort of a clashes when you're there. So I visited the time when there was a problem, and there was a pre-information to us that there is a problem. But for me, the reason I visited is my country doesn't matter. I should visit. So that is exactly the opinion was, and still the same. Though the things has completely changed, as everyone can notice without any doubt. But then the biggest thing was what I experienced there. That perception or that information which has been given to us was nothing was there. So for me, and then again, I'll pick up the same word, friendly. Yes, SMEs are friendly, no doubt. The culture, which actually shocked me, and not only shocked, is actually surprised and loved it. This once that age when I was in university and doing my graduation and that sort of a time, I felt like I should stay here. I won't go. It was that a beauty, untouched beauty, number one, as a nature. I didn't visit any of the tourist places. For me, the people, the culture, and the area where I could go and see and meet and talk to the normal people was more important. And I got that chance, and I would say that was a golden chance. I got it, and it's basically overall picture of Assam. I would say even if there was a problem, SMEs were fighting for their own purpose. They didn't go out and did problem to rest of the country. You should understand that part. If there is an issue, they were actually raising their issue rather than creating problem into the country. No. So even if there was a problem, there was a local, no effect at all to anyone else's life. And that is more important. We should understand. If you see what happens globally right now, is if the problem is somewhere else, but then the opposition, the kind of oppose or a kind of unhuman activity happens across the globe rather than the place where you belongs to, rather than the place where the problem actually begins from. So SMEs didn't do that, even though uh, there was a bloodshed there, but then it was not at all for any innocent person outside Assam. And that is where I would end again with the people, because this is what the people of Assam is. Because natural beauty, untouched beauty, so is the people and culture is untouched beauty. It needs to come out. That's
Wow.
untouched beauty should come out.
All
This is
right,
probably
Rakesh.
that is probably why there is that perception that they are a peaceful people, because they don't take their troubles elsewhere. So the perception of the Assamese is as a peaceful people, which is
Wow.
brilliant.
This is, yeah, I mean, this is a new learning for me as well, because when I have spoken to people before, one of the things that I have heard is, is like, do terrorists exist there? Although I have heard things like, people being friendly. And what Rakesh has really raised the point that any problems which is within the area is for its own people. They are not really going out and creating problem. However, because of media coverages, it's not been the best image so far. So I'm really glad that you both have picked up similar issues, really. So thank you for that. Burzine, I have got another question for you, and it is this. You grew up in Mumbai, and Assamese and people from Northeast, a lot of them go to Mumbai for various reasons, to study, to work, and some of them settle down there. Uh, you have said that you know people from Assam, and I think you have got friends as well who are of
We have
Assamese
family friends,
origin. Fantastic.
who lived for several years in Bombay with us, and we
Great.
over the weekend. And of course, then subsequently, pursuant to retirement of the said individual, they moved back to Guwahati. So I
Okay.
was not entirely unexposed. I mean, this was a very close family friend, so we were in constant contact, socially at least once a month. And
Great.
individuals were Assamese in question. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's brilliant, because now my question will make sense. So you might have heard from, your family, friends, people that you know from Assam, that they have had to probably experience getting comments from people who are not from the region. Again, this is not a general comment, but then this happens. They would have to face comments like, is Assam not a part of India, where the people of Assam and Northeast do need different kind of passport to enter the area. So, and also that Northeastern people are sometimes referred as Chinkies outside, which is, I think, just not acceptable. What would you say
First
to
thing first, I
those
would say
comments?
they are Sino-Tibetan ethno-linguistically, so the word Chinese doesn't arise or any such pejoratives like Chinks or whatever, which is complete nonsense for the record, I should like to place. All these are Sino-Tibetan speaking people. The Sino-Tibetan family of languages exists in what is Northeast India, but also in Ladakh, for instance. Ladakhi is a Sino-Tibetan language. All of this part of India, even from the medieval times onwards, historically speaking, and I'm talking all the way up to Arunachal Pradesh, what was known as NEFA, Northeast Frontier Agency era, that was, it is within what is called the cultural continuum of South Tibet. It doesn't mean that Tibetans per se, but in a very, very broad context, it was all what was a continuum, a cultural, ethno-linguistic continuum of what is Southern Tibet. This is not to dissolve differences, and there are several, because Northeast India is home to an astonishing array of languages and dialects, some of which are endangered, and I'm proud to say at SOAS we are sustaining research in them, as it were. Dialects from Lusha Hills, Ao, Zonka, so on and so forth. And we have an Assamese collection of vernacular titles too at SOAS,
Okay.
we do collect books, novels, history, works, and the like. Which I can speak for in direct contact, having run the Assamese collection with other South Asian languages. But again, come back to what you said about the Assamese perception that they would be considered or deemed outsiders. Well, this is not exactly consolation, but not just the Assamese, who may look more Indian, but even further afield, Indian individuals from Nagaland and all would be perceived as exotic, or would there would be a question of othering them. Fetishizing them as the other.
Yeah.
But that is what stereotypes are, and people are going to peddle stereotypes. It's the question of dispelling stereotypes, as it were. And stereotypes apart, there is a sense of what one would express as their own intimate thoughts. For example, the Assamese question, family question, I remember, and I remember this as a child, as a growing up teenager, this lady had mentioned to me that when Nehru spoke about his heart going out to the Himalayas with the 62 war, In poetical terms, Nehru was very eloquent, no question about it.
He was.
But not for a moment did he actually delve on the fact that our hearts go out to Assam, which is vulnerable, which is the first line of contact when the Chinese People's Liberation Army would come down.
Yeah.
And she said for her generation growing up in the 60s, it just singed into their consciousness that he actually spoke in such broad terms, but he could have, for a moment, imaginatively, empathically, delved on Assam as a very critical part. Of course, there's Arunachal Pradesh too, which is part of the border problem. But he could have actually said, because, I mean, PLA troops were literally outside the tea gardens in one sense. And this is what she had mentioned to me, and I never have forgotten it all these years on later, after this program came today for you to ask me. And it's echoed in my consciousness to, recollect and reminisce about it to you here, as it were. But these stereotypes need to be dispelled. And as I mentioned, there's nothing exotic about Assam. I mean, because you have it every morning staring in your face in a cup of tea. And or at for your 11s and again at 4 too. And the Putra Valley, which has sustained, which is very rich and fertile. I mean, the British actively encouraged immigration there, as we know, for people to settle for rice, tea, timber, and other plants. One thinks of the British with doing their canal works up in Punjab, what have become the rich alluvial lands of India's and Pakistan's Punjab. But the Brahmaputra Valley also was actively encouraged and developed by the British. And of course, precisely for this, and the tea gardens, as we said. So it was, in a sense, there were linkages with the rest of what you may call loosely mainland India. And there was no mainland India and Siliguri and the chicken neck that we have now, because East Bengal was very much part of British India as well. All of this, so there was no question of just having a very short stretch link through Kuch Bihar into the Northeast Seven Sisters, as it were. That has happened only after 47. But up to 47, all of this was one continuing region and part of the Indian Empire, right up to the borders with Burma, as it were.
Yeah. No, Burzine, again, you have given all the historic context as well. Before, I think you have also talked about stereotyping. Stereotyping is always, it's the outcome of ignorance. So I think
and it's a part of the human condition.
This is it.
It is a part of the human condition, but it's a question of how we go forward from it.
Exactly.
Break the cycle, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. How do we also know that it is our responsibility to learn more about the things, that our history says. And I'm so glad that you have picked up all these different bits from the history. So thank you for that as well. Kirti, now I wanted to ask you a question, but you have said you have not known much about Assam, but I wanted to talk about the... No, that's okay. That's really okay. That's the whole idea of this show anyways. But do you know people or have you met or come across people from Assam through your work or in general in life? If yes, then I wanted to know if there is an interesting story and did you find them easy to deal with? But is it actually a question for me to ask? I don't know. I mean, if you haven't met anybody, I'll ask something else.
No, I have. Okay. Every year we go to the Durga Puja in Camden. And so there's a very heavy presence of people from Assam attending the Durga Puja. So I meet a lot of people there, but again, it's like people that I just meet, not people that I exchange phone numbers or anything with. So I would see them again at another festival or something. One person that I do meet every now and again, and whose number I do have, is a lady called, and she's very active in the Assamese community here in England, and her name is Chinu Kishore.
Yes, Chinu Kishore.
Know her?
Yes, good.
So I meet her at a lot of these events and a lot of these things, and again, she is like the epitome of everything that our family and friends and people that I talk to in Gujarat over the last couple of days said. She's friendly, she's approachable, she's always involved in all these community events. She's always like furthering whatever the cause is, whether it's to support women who are going through difficulties, whether it's supporting children, whether it's supporting anything. But she's always, and so I think that again is another example of what people said is the perception of people from Assam. And so she's somebody that I do know through all these community activities that we do together through the group.
Yeah. Okay. So Durga Puja is a good way to meet people, I think, the people from Assam for sure.
Camden one. I go to one in Harrow. I don't know if you know an area called Harrow in London.
Yes, I do.
So I go to one at the Harrow Arts Centre, which also has quite a few people again from the Assam region. But the one in Camden, certainly, if you want to meet people from Assam, then go to the one in Camden because it's much bigger and so it's a much more varied crowd.
Yeah, no, I mean, Durga Puja is an important festival for people from Assam as well. And so there are many pujas that do happen across the UK. But Camden definitely is one of the big ones. And good to know that you find when you see them personally, they still come across as friendly. But I also wanted to know, did you find any similarities between Gujaratis and Assamese, or is it quite difficult to pick up like that?
Well, for a start, the Durga Puja itself, because we Gujaratis also do the Durga Puja. So that's how I ended up going there. So that's another similarity, that we share a lot of the same festivals and a lot of the rituals that you do at these festivals, like the women dressing up in their bridal wear, the all the bits that go with it, the shringar, the this, that all of those bits are the same. And of course the food, the variety of food and the hospitality. That's another thing which is very different when you attend many I don't really want to be critical, let me word it nicely. When you attend events from other communities, like if you've attended anything from, say, a Scandinavian country or other country, there'll be like little canapes of this, that, and the other. But when you attend any kind of Gujarati or Assamese or, Punjabi, I suppose anything from our region, the food, the hospitality, and the welcoming nature of the people, and that's very much there because the Durga Puja in Camden is very much the catering and everything is done by the Assamese community. So they just welcome anybody and everybody who walks through the door, regardless of creed, color, nationality, whether they're just a passerby and they just want the meal. It's like, it's okay. Everybody's welcome. Come in.
Yes. Yeah. I think, when you say this, it's we are one country, right? Our cultures are similar. Food you talked about. Okay.
May I very quickly interject on that? Kirti made a very instructive point. In one sense, Kirti, if I may, Assam and Gujarat are, practically on the other stretch of the subcontinent.
Yeah.
And the subcontinent, let's not forget that it's not a country, it's a subcontinent, repeat. Second point is, had this situation been transposed elsewhere, say in Europe, Hira, these would be different countries with completely different ethno-linguistic groups speaking very distinct languages with different outlooks, attitudes, and mental dispositions, which is entirely natural, and which is what we see in the Balkans and in Central Europe, and what was the Austro-Hungarian Empire with its panoply of nationalities and groups. The fact is that you have all this within the great Indian experiment, if I may put it so, from 47 onwards, is something to place on record. One hears the much hackneyed phrase unity in diversity, which is fine, but it truly is implied and undergirded by what I call this Indian democratic experiment of having peoples come together under one flag, under one constitution, under one republic, if you will, who would otherwise be utterly disparate, having nothing much in common with them, but would have been different statelets, as we find, say, in Central and Eastern Europe, for instance, where we have rich ethno-linguistic communities who have their own distinct identities and states since the 1990s.
Yes.
But the fact is, that is something to be placed on record when one talks about the Indian Federation, as it were.
Yes. Yeah.
Kirti is right. Of course, Hinduism is a thread, and a very vivid one that would link, say, an Assamese to a Gujarati. But it does that at one level. But beyond that, Kirti, there's not much to be on the same page, because people are different, as it were, and one must dilate on the diversity too. But it is this commonality which has been consciously fashioned and forged since 47 onwards that I'm harping on here.
Yeah.
That talks and speaks to an array of sorts of people who would have otherwise been completely going their different ways on any other continent.
Yeah,
and not
totally.
even in Africa, where you have a bewildering array of ethno-linguistic groups. So
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think when Kirti was talking about similar cultures, she really didn't talk about Hinduism. What she was talking about, the culture, the food, the hospitality, how it's so similar. And because we are in the same country, so it better be similar food, I think sometimes people from distance feels like it's so different, but we are all very similar. So that's what Kirti tried to tell as well. Coming to Rakesh. So Rakesh, we know that towards the end of last year, I think beginning of December 2019, there were protests across India against CAA, which is the Citizenship Amendment Act. And in Assam as well, protests happened in huge numbers. And the reasons why an average Assamese person is protesting against CAA or was protesting is different to the reasons of the protests that happened in other parts of India. I want to know what's your explanation? How do you see it? And how would you explain it to someone else? And also, do you think that the rest of India took a little while to understand why for an average Assamese person, it's a different battle, why they're against CAA? What's your view?
I think I would start with the answering the last bit first.
Okay.
I don't think so. Rest of the India still understand why did Assamese protested. That is what my personal view is. I mean, you can see the pockets can understand, but not rest of the India. That would be too huge to understand that people understand right now that what happened, why Assamese did protest for CAA. So still it's unknown. Still it's completely I would say, misinterpreted. And if you ask me, going towards that means if you follow the herd, you don't get to herd your voice. And this is exactly what happened with the Assamese. There was a loud noise, and if you are having big loudspeaker sound going on, and in there, if you start talking in your own voice, it's completely going to disappear. No one could understand that. And no one could hear even, forget about understanding it. And that is exactly what I personally feel might have happened with the Assamese protesting against CAA. The reason, the idea, the thoughts, the problems were completely different than what rest of the people were opposing it. So in that scenario, I would say as I previously mentioned, the culture of Assam is the main important. The people of Assam are the important. And this is where they need to understand that don't follow the herd. It is not going to work for them. They need to stand out as their problem, as completely different from others. If it is a CAA even, non-CAA or any other problem, and even if the CAA, which includes the problem which SMEs feel they are facing, then they should not go with those sort of keywords where the loud sounds are already there. And that will not, the reason is two. Number one, the community is not as huge as the rest of the country. Number two is the integration of Northeast it didn't happen the way it could have happened after, as Burjan said, after 47. And that was the main thing, that integration is required before people can understand your specific voice. And that integration is required. The SMEs should go, and whenever they meet, like we are meeting here, I mean, one of us is SMEs in the four of us. So that's proud moment to see such a good friend and such a good people to be part of your life. And that's not at all happened with everyone. I would say personally, I visited Assam. I met so many people, but I did not manage to get through that bond which continued with me after I left Assam, even though I personally felt I should actually live there for my rest of life, as I would like to repeat again. But that bond, it didn't happen with everyone. The integration is so much important that will help the SMEs to get the voice heard.
Okay, so Rakesh, good point really raised. So one, you have said there is so much noise going on across India about CA that Assam is being a smaller community, those voices are not heard. And the second thing you also have said about integration of northern, northeastern states within themselves to become stronger, come better outside. So I
Correct.
think well said. I know Virgin wants to say something, but because this is also my I feel is a platform where we should be able to tell a little bit about what actually those reasons were or are. So if it's fine by all of you, can I just explain a little bit? Is that okay? um, so all it is this. So Assam has been fighting for its identity for a very, very long time. But Burzine would know this the best. In 1836, Bengali was the official language of Assam. And as a part of that, Bengali people were brought to work in offices, in court, in schools, and for people, native people of Assam, their employment opportunities became lesser and lesser. So many movements happened, and we started like Assamese language started to get its recognition back. Probably about 1873, but in stages. But even if you look at it today, in the digital world, all Assamese scripts you will not find. There's still many Assamese scripts are in Bengali. So we still, in that battle. On top of that, we had Assam movement, which was in 1979. And that stayed for 6 years. And what it was a protest against illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. That was the main issue of the protest. And after 6 years, the government of India signed a contract which said that anyone who kind of had entered the country before 1971, they would be accepted. So this whole process, NRC, which is National Register of Citizens, only started and the announcement of CAB happened, Citizenship Amendment Bill. For an average Assamese, it really doesn't matter whether these migrants are Hindu or Muslim origin, or they also are not into political biases. What it is about their identity, because we still have got areas in Assam like Barak Valley where Bengali is still the official language. This whole area is dominated by Bengali. There is the influx of immigrants from Bangladesh. Still, it continues. So, for an Assamese, they're saying that it is our right to protect our identity. Like Rakesh said, it's already a small community. So they cannot really take that anymore. So that's the whole idea. Whereas I think in many other parts, there are various other reasons. So I just took this opportunity so that it's a little bit clear. And I know Burzine wants to add something to that as well. So what's your point?
Could I start with two words, Hira, which most Indians may not, well, thinking Indians would know, but most Indians, especially the younger generation today, the millennials, would not even understand. If you're going to talk about Assam and what are the current crises, East Pakistan. Now, if you say East Pakistan to an average kid in Bombay, he doesn't know what you're on about. I mean, what is East Pakistan? Well, there was something called East Pakistan from 47 to 71 till 15th December 71, an entity, a legal entity which existed, which in Jan 72 became the People's Republic of Bangladesh. And to trace back these issues, and it's always instructive to take the long view. It goes back even before the problems of secessionism from 79 onwards, as you mentioned. This really harkens back to 47 and partition, which made a travesty of borders, as it were. But it was here to stay. Now, there's no undoing that, as it were. The question is of moving on. But even after 47, there was constant migration from East Pakistan of minorities who were being harassed, Hindu minorities. And they bore the full brunt after 25th March 71, when Operation Searchlight started under Yahya Khan.
Yes.
And of course, the liberation of East Pakistan into Bangladesh occurred. Much of what is happening with this NCR business and the CAA issue goes back to the Bangladesh partition question and Pakistan's problem, which has become Assam's problem in a way.
Yes.
And one outburst of it, and a very ugly one, was 83 in Nelly, as you may recall also.
Of course.
And that is the one. And then, of course, the matter died, but it has simmered. It's never really been resolved, but it's simmered away, so to speak. But the question is that these issues go back to point that Assam has been in the crosshairs of other problems, regionally speaking. And of course, there is the legacy of the Raj rule, where despite good intentions of developing the Brahmaputra Valley, as you mentioned, there was this influx of skilled and semi-skilled Bengalis who were brought in, and it was a double-edged sword, which turned out to be where the Assamese were progressively felt alienated within their own context and their own environs, as it were. And on the CAA bill, I want to conclude with this because others have to speak too. It's not fair. Is that, and I speak for someone who comes from Iranian studies, which is what my main vocation is.
Yeah.
The CAA, for the record, I should like to very squarely place, is a proviso for non-Muslim historic minorities from SAARC countries or the SAARC region, but also Southwest Asia, who may seek citizenship and asylum in India due to religious duress, active or inactive, and persecution. And by that, it just does not mean Hindus from Pakistan or Bangladesh or, say, Sri Lanka. It also means Hindus from Southwest Asia, Sikhs from Afghanistan, Zoroastrians and Baha'is and Jews from Iran, for one thing. So, we know what the situation is in West Asia. This proviso was brought in, but again, as Rakesh mentioned, due to noise, sheer stupidity, chaotic noise, white noise, as we say on the internet ether atmospherics, that has dissipated the matter and muddied the waters and has completely blown things out of proportion. Because what was initially implemented by the administration in Delhi was precisely this, to give historic non-Muslim minorities asylum in India.
Yes.
I mean, and then the next thing you know is people talk about NCR and Assam and Gwalpara district. And I say to myself, do you even realize what the hell are you on about? This is nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with what is squarely being faced in contact. And perhaps Indians could at least look at regional developments and broaden the horizons to see what is happening. That this is being done with regional questions and regional issues in mind, as it were.
Yeah.
And it's time people just got out of their insular bubble of what some TV channel tells you or what some news corporation like The Wire tells you or some such thing. There is more to it than that. And perhaps people need to take not just the longer view, but a lateral thinking view, as I do coming from Middle Eastern studies.
Yes,
I'm sorry, I would like to stop there because there are other speakers who come.
No, Burzine, but then is a really valid point. And also, you don't come from the region. So that really has a neutral approach there. So that really makes sense. So thank you for that. Now, I have got guests, who are waiting, so I'll have to bring them and say goodbye to all of you. But before that, if I run a very quick rapid fire question, are you guys up for it? It don't have to be right, by the way, because I don't have a hamper to give away. So if you go wrong, that's fine too.
What? Tea hamper?
Look at that.
I was going to say that. How about the first flush or second flush tea hampers, which normally sell for 3-digit figures at Fortnum and Mason, Darjeeling.
Wow.
Okay. Good stuff. Okay, so Kirti.
I have the Fortnum and Mason hamper up there, but I've drunk all the tea, of course.
Of course. Yeah. Now, Kirti, I just wanted to quickly know from you. You have been saying that you saw women from India wearing traditional attire. Do you know that what is the name of the traditional attire women wear in Assam? Have you seen?
I have seen it at all
You
the
have
events,
seen.
and the functions, and Chinu herself, she wears it when she does the dance.
Yes. Yes.
Dance.
Yeah. Do you know what that dance is? Do you know the dance?
I don't know the name of the dance, but I know because we say sari and you guys say something like make chadar.
Well done. Yes. So it's called, I'm so impressed. Yeah. So it's called Mekhela Chador. And like you said, it's sari, but it's 2 pieces and it's made out of silk. We have got 3 silks. One is Pat, Muga, and Eri. Yes. So yeah, that's pretty good, Kirti. Rakesh has been nodding his head. So I think you know the dance form.
Exactly, it's a bigu.
Yes.
It's a Bihu dance. Yeah.
Bihu
Yeah.
dance,
Yeah. That's like the biggest festival as well. Bihu is the biggest festival. But I have got another question for Rakesh because so do you know the name of the place in Assam which is listed as the world's largest river island? Might be a bit difficult.
Well, it is difficult, and definitely I don't know.
That's fine. That's fine.
That's exactly these all known places. What Burzine said, that the Kaziranga Park, and these are the known, but the unknowns are so many places.
That's true.
I was not at all ready to come out even from the bus door or train door because I could just see, and my eyes are completely open when I was entering Assam or Northeast even. So beautiful. So this is what I said is untouched beauty.
It
there.
is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, but
I can't wait to go.
Trust me.
you must have to. Okay, so I think that's very positive that people want to come to Assam. That's a very, very positive answer. But Rakesh, the place name, it's called Majuli, Majuli. It's the world's largest river island on Brahmaputra River. Yeah. And to Burzine. For Burzine, this is very easy, I can tell, being a librarian.
I don't know.
In ancient times, Assam was also known with another name. What was that name?
Kamarup.
Yeah, Kamrup and also Pragjotishpur.
Yes. Both are near similar toponyms mentioned for it. And again, if I could just bring in Iranian studies here, indulge me for a moment, because Kirti mentioned, yes, people do go, because last September in Berlin, a colleague from Tehran University was telling me, I was in Guwahati. And of course, my first impression was, why would you be in Guwahati? What particularly took you? He said they had a conference in Persian linguistics.
Wow.
So, he didn't come to Bombay or Delhi or Calcutta or Madras, the 4 metros that you would traditionally think. Well, he did have to land there, obviously.
Yes.
But he said, I went to Guwahati. So I was pleasantly surprised over breakfast, the conference days that we had last September. And he said, I went because we had a conference there. So I just thought I'd mention that as an anecdote.
That's so wonderful
that
to
was
hear.
One of the stops on my tea tour because my son had gifted me a book about Robert Fortune. And after reading his book, I decided that once he graduates, which he has now finished, I thought once he graduates, the first thing I'm going to do when I become a free woman is follow Robert Fortune's tea tour. And of course, Assam, Darjeeling, all those places were on my itinerary. And now
it's happening.
I've just get past COVID.
It's happening. It's happening for the love of tea, for sure. Okay, guys, listen.
Yes.
It is so wonderful to talk to all of you.
I'll contact all of you for more information.
Please do. We'd be happy to help. But no, thank you for all of your views. Your views matter because it helps to see things objectively. And also thank you for taking out the time from your Sunday afternoon. I have to say goodbye to all of you because I have got other guests. But do take care of yourself. And goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Inviting us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Great. I have got another set of guests, and I would, without actually wasting any more time, I would quickly bring them to the panel because I know that we are, I think, kind of running out of time. And my first guest is Rashmi Mishra. Hi, Rashmi. Hello, can you see us? Namaste.
Yes,
Uh,
okay.
brilliant. Brilliant. I'll bring my next guest as well, and then we'll carry on with our discussion. Hi, Shonak.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. So I have got Rashmi Mishra, and Rashmi is from. Let me change this setting. I think this will be better. So Rashmi Mishra, she is from Varanasi. She lives here in the UK. She is the founder of Inspiring Indian Women, right? Or is it Indian Inspiring Women? It's a platform. Okay, Indian Inspiring Women. So it's a platform where you. Okay, you're breaking, Rashmi. You're trying to say something, but I couldn't hear. But it's a platform where you bring women from across the world under one platform and offer them the opportunity to showcase their talent. But here today, I'm going to talk about your experience of Assam because you lived there. Your childhood was in Assam. So I'll come to that very quickly. And Shonak Mediratta, Shonak is from Delhi. But then he also spent some time in Orissa. His schooling days were in Orissa. Now he lives in the UK since 2001 with his two daughters and his wife. He's an IT professional, and he says that his schooling time in Orissa, that's his closest connection with Assam. He loves traveling, so I would like to know from him if Assam is in his list to visit. So Rashmi, I think now I can see you better. So you lived in Assam. You said that your childhood was spent in Assam, which I think is 6 years, from year 2 to year 8 you spent in Assam.
Yes.
You studied in Holy Child School in Guwahati, and you went to places in and around doing picnics like Tejpur and Shillong, Bhutan. So I'm very interested to know your experience of living in Assam and also what kind of memories you have of Assam, that kind of you have got some kind of image of Assam after living there that you would tell others as well. So yeah, I want to know all of that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Hira, for giving me this opportunities. And the first thing that comes to my mind is Brahmaputra, the river, the massive, huge river, and the horizon. And I remember a tea garden tea garden and Brahmaputra. And my childhood was full of fun in Assam, where I remember we used to go trekking and hiking on the mountains because our colony was all surrounded by all hills and mountains, and some people could spot deer and tall animals. We could hear the sound of animals as well in the colony where we used to stay. Beautiful memories, beautiful. I'd love to go back. Yeah,
Wow.
that's
Wow.
me.
Wow. That's nice to hear. You have talked about Brahmaputra, and I think I think that's the one of the biggest features of Assam when we talk about Assam, and I'm glad to know that you have some really lovely memories, fond memories of Assam. Did you want to say more? Because I almost felt like your connection was a bit slow. So did you want to add something, or did I cut you anywhere?
Yeah. No, you can continue. Of course, there's so much to talk. The Bihu dances, the festivals, going around in a bus to watch all these festivals, every place. They would organize, and I remember it used to be so much of fun wearing small mekhla chadars and those big handmade hats the Assamese accent. It's very unique state, very unique. Has everything you dream of. It's there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, great. So the hat that you spoke about is called jappi. It's a very typical thing made of bamboo, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called jappi. Exactly. Yeah. Shonak, you grew up in Delhi and then also in Orissa. And when I am saying this, I am assuming that probably you didn't have too many opportunities to meet people from Assam, interact with Assam when you were growing up. So, what kind of perception or image, a picture you had of Assam when you were growing up? I mean, did you have kind of confusion that is
Sure.
Assam a part of Bengal, or you what kind of food probably they eat, or are the traditions different to the traditions you see probably in Punjabi community? Uh, and I'm sure you have a perception of Assam now. So has it changed? Has it always been like that? So I kind of want to know your views of Assam.
First thing is, it's not entirely true that I haven't been to Assam. So during our childhood days, when I used to live in Orissa, I've been to Darjeeling for holidays because that was the popular tourist destination. So I've been to Darjeeling. And obviously, I spent a lot of time in east of India, and the company where I started my career, I had a lot of good friends who had actually joined from NIT in Silchar. So there's an engineering college in Silchar, which is highly reputed.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
had quite a few friends where I picked up some Sylheti slangs, if you like, in terms of them working with us. So got a feel of how it is different from the Assamese language. And interestingly, when you said about how much I know about Assam and everything else, so I did do an interesting experiment. So actually, when you said you invited me for this program, what I did was I went back to my parents, and back in India, I just said, okay, when you talk about Assam, what comes to your mind? So I was expecting they'll stop at tea and not say anything beyond that. I was pleasantly surprised because they came out with things like, yeah, we know that it's obviously tea is the first thing that comes to your mind. You pick up that cozy cup of tea every morning. The second thing was, people talked about Bhupen Hazarika, they talked about Brahmaputra, they talked about Bihu. And as I started talking to the younger generation in my family, the information started getting richer and richer. Interestingly, because again, it's because India is more aware now. People are more connected, and people are traveling, so things are changing, and they understand things a lot more, and that got them excited. And then they said, "Okay, that's interesting." And then people started researching and coming back. So I got a few interesting tidbits from them. So they told me about things like, you just mentioned when you're talking to the other people, Majuli, which is the largest island. And interestingly, the smallest island also exists on River Brahmaputra. So it's not just the largest, but the smallest as well. And you also have the world's second oldest, I think, and Asia's oldest oil field in Digboi.
Second, I
Um,
think. Yeah.
yeah. And then I think somebody from my family also told me something about a sacred lamp that is in a monastery in Jorat district. I think
Okay.
it's a lamp that has been burning continuously for more than 450 years. So that's an interesting piece of information. Another piece that I came across was about the Asia's largest dry fish market, which is very close to Guwahati. So that's another interesting piece of information that I heard.
Okay, listen, Shonak, I have learned some new things from you. I must say, I don't know about the facts in Jorhat. I don't know what's the largest dry fish market near to Guwahati. Really, I don't. But this is the sort of discussion needs to happen. Like you said, people when you asked back home and they got interested, they now want to know more about Assam, and
Exactly.
it's just a whole interesting thing. And I think these discussions are that's why also very important. And I think for you, I would say because you grew up in Orissa, and I didn't know you went to Darjeeling, although Darjeeling is not in Assam, but I think that's the closest you have been to. That makes a difference. That really does. If you were in Punjab, it would not be the same, I suppose, rather than you getting the opportunity to travel different parts of India, including the eastern side. I think that really makes a difference. But I have got now a question for Rashmi, then I'll come back to Shonak again. So Rashmi, you probably know this, that Assam and northeast of India are not known to people the same way that they would know probably about some of the other parts of India. Uh, like we were discussing, people sometimes also have asked whether people of Assam need a different passport, whether it's a part of India or China. So if that's the scenario within India, uh, it goes without saying that probably there needs to be also awareness outside India. So what do you think? What sort of work is required to probably raise the profile of Assam and make people known about Assam? What do you think?
Yeah, I think what I have noticed that other communities, they have, you take Gujaratis, you take Punjabis, you take Bengalis, especially these three communities. I see them celebrating each and every festival with great pomp and glory, out there dancing, singing, dressing up, everybody. And it's not only for Bengalis, like it's the Durga Puja that everybody from all the communities are there. If it's Dandiya, Garba, everybody from all the communities are there. If it's Bhangra and this Baisakhi and Lori, all the other communities are also there. It's not only for their particular people. So I think that there's some kind of lacune which is about the Assamese community also, who need to come out and organize such kind of their festival. I know that there is one Bihu in April and the other Bihu is I think January or in the
Yes.
winters. So the two
January.
Bihu, which is another word for Baisakhi. Everybody knows Baisakhi so much, but nobody knows that there is in Assam also people celebrate Bihu in the same festival with another name, the Harvest Festival. So a lot of information needs to be out there by in schools or in say for example in London, organizing these festivals, hiring a place, a ground, inviting people, little children growing up, they watch these festivals, and when they grow they know that, okay, I know Bihu is there, I know there is this festival, I know their dress, I know what they eat. So that is something which is missing for Assamese people. They need to really form big communities and organize whatever they celebrate in public rather than in their own, community, but out there in the open, inviting everyone there. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm summing up what you have said, and I agree to all of that. You're saying the festivals, if we pick up Bihu, because Bihu is still known to some people, is rather than keeping it in the community, bring out to the public. And you also mentioned about schools,
Yeah.
almost organize events where you show a bit of your culture, food, what are the important places in Assam. So it almost becomes an awareness campaign, isn't it? And giving people first-hand experience. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that. Shonak, coming to you, you have said that you love traveling. So I want to know whether Assam is in your list. You have gone closest to Darjeeling, obviously. And if yes, then what are the 5 reasons why would you visit Assam? And you have also said you like to travel with your daughters who have been brought up here in the UK. Probably they don't know much about Assam, apart from Assam tea, which they get to see here. What would you sell them to convince and come along with you?
Sure. Yeah, sorry. Just to correct before when I said that, Darjeeling. So we basically passed through Assam. The route was through Assam. So that's the reason why I said closest to Assam.
Got you.
Yeah. But in terms of, 5 things or the things that would really attract somebody to kind of go and visit Assam, obviously for things, I like wildlife. So I guess Kaziranga National Park is obviously one of the good attractions in that sense. So that's kind of point 1. to be visiting there. And then obviously, the tea comes to mind as well. That's the first thing. Obviously, I have been to Darjeeling, but I would like to explore the other areas of Assam where you can see tea plantation. So that's one thing. And obviously the festival. So especially if I could kind of manage to go around the Bihu festival time, that would be really interesting to see how it kind of is, celebrated in parallel the way we celebrate Vaisakhi, and how it's actually kind of celebrated in that sense. That's another interesting piece. And I think I would like to kind of, the things that I mentioned about the monastery and things in terms of, I think there is another one old temple very close to Guwahati as well, which is like one of the oldest. So I would like to visit all those historical areas if possible. Then obviously go sailing by the Brahmaputra River, because that's kind of amazing. As they say, that there are areas where it spans across 10 kilometers in breadth, which is
Yes.
breathtaking. So
Yes.
those are the few reasons that I would definitely want to visit Assam and take my daughters there as well.
Okay.
And obviously another reason being that taking them to the region where I grew up, eastern part of the country. So
Yes, of course. Yeah, no, wonderful. I think this point should be noted by Assam tourism for sure. And the temple, I think that you mentioned about, which is in Guwahati, is Kamakhya temple, probably
correct.
you are talking
Yeah,
about.
that's right.
And if you want to see Bihu, then like Rashmi said, we have got one Bihu, which is in Bohag Bihu, it's called. It's in April, and Bhogali Bihu or Bhogali Bihu, that's in January. So you have to target either January or April. So that's the time to go to. Now, before we finish, because we are running out of time, I have got, because I asked the other guys as well, some rapid fire kind of a question. Are you guys up for it by any chance? Sure. Yeah, Shonak seems to know far too much. So I will start with you then, Shonak. Now, do you know the city in Assam, which is known as the cultural capital of Assam? You have actually mentioned the name during your other answers. Okay, that's fine. It's not a quiz anyways. Do you want me to answer?
Sorry, is that a question for Rashmi?
No, it was a question for you.
Oh, sorry.
So
no,
what?
Sorry.
Okay, so the cultural capital of Assam is Jorhat, and you mentioned about Jorhat. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And for Rashmi, I think this is easy for you. Name an Assamese and name the Assamese artist who was awarded the Dada Saheb Phalke Award and many other awards.
The person who sang Ganga to me, and his name is Bhupen Hazarika.
Well done, Rashmi. I knew you would crack this. Yes, Dr. Bhupen Hazarika, absolutely, yes. So listen, it is such a pleasure to talk to you both and get your viewpoints on Assam, people of Assam. And I think these are really useful discussions, especially coming from people who are not from Assam. There's so much to learn. So thank you for that as well. Thank you for giving your Sunday afternoon. So goodbye for now and take good care.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for having us.
All right. Thanks. So that brings us to the end of today's show. And there was a purpose. The purpose was to know from people or about Assam who are not from Assam, and areas that needs attention for Assam to be known to outsiders and to be perceived in a way that Assam would like it to be perceived. Next stage is, of course, discussing these points with people who have the knowledge, who have the skills to produce a blueprint to take the next steps. It will be my intention, my effort to have such discussions in the coming times as well. But for now, thank you for watching today's show. Also, thank you to the Sentinel for offering this platform. Sending you best wishes for a healthy and a happy life. Stay blessed, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye.